I think it's put a lot more emphasis on the writing process and the reading process in my room. As a science teacher, sometimes I don't focus on those things, but this made me intentionally focus on how to make my students better readers and better writers. And it also gave me strategies to do that. As not being trained as a science teacher, sometimes I'm not sure how to get them to read and to write, but this gave me the instructional tools that I needed to help them do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. We're not typically people who have to teach, reading strategies or, editing, proofreading, things like that. So it has definitely changed our teaching. And that way we're more conscientious of it. And I feel like it's honestly made us better, more well-rounded teachers because we're now focused on other things that we think are important.
Just talk about that's actually improved the content. Mm-hmm. Like we've done the similar content obviously over the past few years. But last year when we implemented the LDC template tasks in the modules, I saw a dramatic difference between the level of understanding of the topics that we covered through a module versus previous years.
And we really thought it was just because the articles and the materials that we were giving them to read were so much better because we were so much more intentional about finding good pieces of literature for them to read. Right. And so, it just led to better class discussions and definitely deeper knowledge of the content.
So yeah, it did not take away. That was one of the biggest issues with science teachers. I know as a content teacher, that's one of the biggest issues. Like, we have all this content to cover. Honestly, we were going to spend the same amount of time talking about the subject that we did the modules on, but the way we did them through the module, it's the same amount of time, it's the same stuff, but in a different way. And so, and if the result is better, I don't know why you wouldn't go that route.
They're the ones reading. They're the ones pulling out information from the articles. So they are involved and they're learning. They're having to read something to get information to answer questions.
We're not just giving that to them.
Yeah. So I think that has greatly changed and it's changed the way that we run our classrooms. And it's forcing them to grow. It's forcing them to be more responsible and better readers and more intentional readers. They're not just reading for whatever. They're reading to actually learn something from it, so which then improves the quality.
Right. Like I said last time, the improvement from this year to last year is so much, or from last year to the year before, I guess. It's been so much. Like, we realize that we're asking a better question. We're giving them better strategies to get to a better writing piece. So as a result, we're getting so much better writing pieces than we got before. But that's because we're asking the question better. It's a lot to do with us. Like, we changed so much about what we're doing, and that in turn changed so much.
But once they got started on it, I think they felt very comfortable with it because we had structured it so much that their writing process just felt natural. Like they had so much information about the content. They had, outlines that we had all done together in class to organize all their thoughts. So when it came time to actually write, they had no problem producing a really great product. And I think it did kind of shock some of them that they were just like writing and writing and writing and so much to say, and then they felt very strongly about the topic because we write a lot about
controversial issues.
Yeah, like very much argumentative pieces in science.
One of the first times I called her and I was like, my kids have their heads down and they're just writing and it's quiet. And it was because they just when we told them, okay, it's time to put your thoughts down on paper formally, they were just like, okay,
they pretty much wrote for 75 minutes.
It was shocking. And I was like, I don't know what's going on, but they are doing this.
And they were good. They were well thought out pieces.
Much better than we've gotten in the past.
Yeah, so I think
it really has made us work with our English teachers closer than we ever have before. Honestly, I can't remember in previous years when we would have ever have collaborated with them, even though I know that we should have. But this has forced us to go to them and say, hey, how are you doing this in your class? And what can I, to keep the terminology the same. What do they call this in English class? Because we want to call it the same thing in science class. So when we say you're going to write a letter or you're going to write an editorial piece, or how are they doing that in English class so that it can be mimicked, and it limits the confusion by the kids. Oh, well, Miss, so-and-so calls it this, but you're calling it this, that's confusing. So it really helps you bridge across the curriculum that way.
And they were really, really helpful of giving us information on how to teach it, because, we didn't know how to teach a thesis statement. We didn't know, what was the important stuff that we needed to have our kids including in their writing, so they were really helpful in giving us things like a step-by-step guide of how to teach that and to explain it to a kid. So, because that was something I had no idea.
Right.
I'd done it in, college, but I had, no idea how to teach that.
And teaching and stuff.
So we've had to work with them a lot, which has been good.
Yep, and that's better. And hopefully in the future we can kind of align, when they're teaching a certain type of writing, maybe we can do that type of writing. We pretty much
we're super
collaborators. We are super collaborators pretty much every day. I mean, we do the same thing pretty much every day in class together. Like, everybody's on the same schedule. So we already collaborate. I can't say that it's increased it because we're almost already at maximum level.
I've never seen other schools that collaborate
as much as we do. Yeah. But I think if you were a school that maybe didn't, this would be a way to maybe bring your school together, bring your department together, to have like a common goal. But we're already kind of
I guess I would say set aside lots of time, because it does take time. That was one of the hardest words we thought going into it. Oh shoot, this is going to be so easy. These templates, you just fill them in. But finding articles that are relevant and are age appropriate are extremely difficult.
For science, yes. For science more than almost any other subject.
So that's the hardest part is finding good quality material. And that would be my piece of advice, is set aside some time to work and to really dig to find decent articles.
And then leading into the whole what should district and school people do to help this work, it is giving your teachers time to work. Because you do need to have a set, whether it's during your professional development time, but your teachers need work time. They need to be introduced to this material, and then they need to have time to go to computers and work together to come up with a module. And the only other thing I would say is don't be overwhelmed. Like, it will be kind of overwhelming at the beginning, but it will get better and it will make more sense eventually. So at the beginning we were overwhelmed, but then we saw how good this is and how much better it is for students. And
you'll really how easy it was to implement.
It is easy, but it's just the biggest issue. Like, honestly, once they know the steps, it's the time that needs to be. I think forcing this on people without getting the time would cause major problems.
And I think administrators need to understand that we do have a lot of other things going on in the classroom, so you can't expect people just to go in and do this with every single unit that they're covering, and you wouldn't want to. This needs to be baby steps into the full-blown.
You can't expect people to do modules all the time. Like, and I wouldn't even set it as a rule. Like, that's just too much pressure. I mean, it needs to be a gradual
during regular planning. We have so much to do during regular.
It's just, I think it would be too much.
And, we rarely get our full planning time anyway.
Right.
And, you're trying to plan your regular classes on top of that. There's no way.
Yeah, we did have. We were attending professional developments for this, so we had days out of class that we missed. Like sub-paid days. But I think that's kind of what it takes. It takes time when teachers can only focus on this, because honestly we're focused on so many things that we're busy people.